Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our second GUALA webinar. This is Judy Martinez. On behalf of the National Council for Community and Education Partnerships, and as manager of the Gear Up Alumni Leadership Academy, I am honored to announce today's presenter, our very own Daniel Bremer, Associate Director of Government Relations here at NCEP. Today's webinar presentation is titled, Be Ready When the Call Comes, How to Build Your Supporter Network, and is aimed at helping alumni leaders streamline their advocacy efforts to ensure impact during the rest of their GUALA year, especially when they are called to action. As you know, NCEP serves as the National Technical Assistance Provider as designated by the U.S. Department of Education and principal advocate of the Gear Up program in Washington, D.C. Before we start, I'd like to go over some quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to alumni leaders and coaches via YouTube. You will receive an email from me with information following today's webinar. All attendees have been muted to improve the webinar's performance and to avoid unnecessary audio feedback. We've built in time for questions throughout the presentation, but please feel free to send your questions in as they arise using the question and answer module. If you're having trouble hearing or viewing the slides, please contact GoToMeeting directly by navigating to the Help menu in your application. If you plan to tweet about today's event, we encourage you to use hashtag GearUpWorks, hashtag GearUp, or hashtag webinar in your tweets, and feel free to include @GUALA@NCEP or @EdPartnerships. Before I turn it over, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Daniel for being an enthusiastic supporter of GUALA and for doing this training for us today. So let's dive right in and take it away, Daniel.
Okay, well, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I see some familiar names, some folks I haven't been in touch with for some time. So welcome, Brooke. Welcome, Joshua. Hector, Katie, good to see you guys as always, as well as Kanya and Lilia. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a couple of coaches, Melissa Gattuso and Jafeth Sanchez, and welcome, Walfried. So thank you so much all for joining us today. I just sent out a quick tweet. You can retweet that. I wanted to get Hector and Katie, whose Twitter handles we have, and mention them as well. But I guess Judy beat me to finishing my tweet. So let's get started with today's webinar. Thank you again so much for being here. Today we're going to be talking about what actions you can take today to just be ready when a call to action comes. And the idea around this is to build a network of folks that are going to be helping you get the message out there. This is today's agenda. We'll go over the intro and session objectives. We'll just talk a little bit about why it's important to build a network of supporters that can help us, like I said, amplify and the message that we are trying to get out there. And then some of the steps that you can start taking to plan, prepare, and then capture, measure, and report. At the end, I'll share some next steps, immediate next steps, and also some planning steps. I know some of you have expressed some, is the word concerns? Well, expressed some restlessness as to finding new opportunities to advocate for Gear Up in your communities and with your members of Congress. So as best as I could, I found some opportunities there that I will be sharing with you later. And then we have the Q&A at the very end. This webinar might be shorter than an hour, so I'll get right to it so I can let you all go and get back to more fun and interesting things than being on a webinar. Just kidding. Okay, so why is it important? How do you start building a support network that is ready to take action when the call to action comes? Now, this is the question that I want you to be able to walk out from this webinar today and say, okay, I know now the next 3 steps that I need to take so that I can start building that network. And what is important here is, so advocacy is all about relationships. It's about the relationships that you have with your network and how they respond when you ask them to take action. And number two is also the relationships that you've built with the media in your districts and your communities, as well as the relationships that you've built with the members of Congress and their staff, both at the district and the Washington, D.C. office. So this is the question that I want you to be able to answer today. And if I wasn't able to help you answer that, I want you to let me know so that we can keep improving this. So why? Why do we need to build a supporter network? Why do we need to advocate for GUALA? Well, there's three very simple reasons. Number one, advocacy is a critical role of your job description as alumni leaders and for staff joining us as well. It's not written formally into staff's job descriptions, but the question that we need to answer here is if it's not you who are speaking up for GUALA and other students like you, who will? And this is where we come in. So this is why it's so critical that we take ownership of the advocacy for GUALA. Number two, building a supporter network minimizes the thinking time that you need to put in when you get a call to action. So this will keep you productive and efficient, and needless to say, it will just make the call very effective because it will just amplify the voice of one organization, one student into thousands of voices because of your supporter network. And thirdly, most easily, is the fact that we're already doing a lot of advocacy already. We're already out there educating our partners. We're already educating community organizations that are helping our students. We're already, the private sector partners that are participating in GUALA. We're already doing a lot of work with them. So we're already pitching and educating folks about GUALA. Now, the specific call is for you to reach out to your members of Congress and to get other people to reach out to their members of Congress. So it's the same message or the same activity, it's just a different target, which is Congress. I would just like to throw a blanket disclaimer out there. This webinar that this presentation that I'm sharing with you today is a training that we do for GUALA staff. So it's been adapted, obviously, to fit the needs of the GUALA alumni, and it's just a comment. So let me know if you have any questions. So now we'll go into the nitty-gritty of how to build that supporter network, and it's 3 steps. These are the steps. You'll see the indicators, the red, yellow, and green indicators throughout the presentation, just to kind of bring you back to what step of the process are we talking about here. Judy, do we have any questions so far, any doubts of what we're trying to achieve before I continue?
No, sir, but we have some amazing tweets, so keep it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the tweets. So moving on. Okay, so what do you do when you get a call to action? Now, can I get a show of hands of who on the webinar already receives our calls to action? That will give me a good idea of where we are. And Judy, can you count them for me and let me know?
We have 2 so far in Arizona, Hector, and Walfrey as well in California.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we will go back and check why you're not receiving those calls to actions. Most of you should have received our latest one, which was sent a little bit of a while ago. It was sent in August, just to wrap up August district days. You should also have been receiving some of our email blasts from National Gear Up Week during National Gear Up Week with the overview of everything that happened every day. But so we send out calls to action almost on a monthly basis, inviting Gear Up professionals and college access professionals to take action on certain things that they need to be communicating to Congress. We usually provide some talking points as well as some context, and then links for folks to report back. Okay. Now,
Daniel?
in those calls, yes.
My apologies. We had a couple more hands from
Okay.
Melissa in West Virginia, Japheth, Nevada, with Katie, Brooke in Kentucky, Josh in Arizona.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised at that low count. Well, thank you so much for that recount. I will take it as valid. I hope you weren't violating the trust of the people's, just inflating the ballots. But thank you. So the calls to action, like I said, have a specific message, a specific ask. It's either a call to call your members of Congress, or to write them via web form, or to send them letters or faxes. And then we have a link for you to report back. And thirdly, there's a space for you to just get in touch and get the message out to more people. So sometimes when you get that email, it's obviously always at the worst time in your personal or professional life. You probably have deadlines, and you probably have tons of things that are happening around you, and you're like, and there's just one more thing that just got added to my plate, and I can't do it. So the idea behind this webinar is to help you get some of that thinking out beforehand, so that when the call to action comes, you know how to react, and you can take action immediately, maximizing the impact and not having too much downtime by having to kind of think as like, okay, so I need to do this and then that and then report back. It's like, okay, that's too much work. I'm not going to do that. So first step of the plan of what to do when the call to action comes is you need to plan. So you need to think about who needs to hear about Gear Up. Now, most of the times in the email, we'll let you know who we're targeting. But this is a good exercise to do by yourself, and you can do it right now. And just think through, who do I think needs to hear about Gear Up? Who doesn't know enough about Gear Up to become a supporter? Well, members of staff, members of Congress and their staffs, the administration, meaning the White House, Department of Ed staff, your local media, local decision makers, your council members and your state legislature and your governor, the partners that are part of the Gear Up grant. All those folks need to be constantly reminded of the importance and the value that Gear Up brings to your community. Number two is, what do they need to hear? Well, most of the times in the emails, in the calls to action that we put out, we'll spell it out for you. So that's an easy part. But we only provide the national perspective. And the idea is that you take that national perspective, communicate it to your target audience, and you sprinkle it with some of that good local, yummy, juicy information and success stories. Because that's where the richness lies, and that's how you build relationships with the people in your districts and in your communities. And this is fairly simple. This is not something that you have to, go crazy about and make up. I mean, that student Y, just graduated. They were not on track before Gear Up was, was in their lives, and now, they're going to an Ivy League school, or they're pursuing graduate studies. And those are the kinds of stories that only you guys know about, because you're right there in the communities. Okay. So how should they hear about GEAR-Up is the other question that you need to be thinking about. And we'll also spell that out in the emails that we put out. Like I said, sometimes it's sign on to this petition. Then it's we need you to make a call to your members of Congress. We need you to send a letter. We need you to go and meet with your member in person while they're in their districts. Take advantage of that. Or just, become active on social media. The how is also relevant in terms of how best your network responds to the calls that you put out. And I'll touch on that in just a second. And then fourth is, how will I mobilize the people that I have around me that care about this issue? And it's, you can forward the email blast that we send out. You can send individual emails and say, hey, John, I really need you to help me with this. Or you just tweet it out and you say, hey, I received this call to action about, making sure that low-income students have an equal opportunity to go to college. Will you also take action? Here's a link. Or I mean, do you set up a call tree? Do you call a parent and then that parent calls another parent and so on and so forth? And then suddenly you have, 30 parents making calls to the same member of Congress, making sure that they're informing that member about the importance and impact that GEAR-Up is having in that community. Or do you just make, individual texts or individual calls? It's like, hey, really need your help. So any questions so far in the planning piece? Okay.
No questions here.
Good, good, good. So the planning piece, just to sum it up, is about having the pieces in place so that you don't have to think, okay, who do I need to contact? How do I need to contact them? And what do I need to tell them? You've already figured all that out. So the moment that the call to action comes, you just, you go into action mode and execute. Okay, but how do you prepare? So how do you really, so you've got your plan, you've decided who you want to contact, but how do you go about that? So this is a preparation phase, and here is where you go in and you say, okay, so who needs to hear about this? And I'm going to use example of your members of Congress. So you need to create a list of your key staff of your congressional delegation. So you need to have who are your members of Congress. You need to have you need to have the address of their district office. You need to have the address of their Washington, D.C. office. When they have multiple district offices, just pick the one that's closest to you. Then you need to make sure that you have telephone numbers and emails for each of the following people in the member's staff. You need to know who the education aide is so that when you have specific policy or appropriations questions, this is the person that you send them to. If you're inviting your member to an event locally, you need to know who their scheduler is and say, hey, we have this awesome event. It's from 9 to 5 at this place. We're doing this, and we'd love for the member to come and be recognized as a supporter of the GEAR-Up program. So that's where you need the scheduler's contact information. And then you want to know who handles press. If you're tweeting, if you're going to host a tweet-a-thon, or you're going to have a campaign on Facebook or some other kind of campaign, either in social media or print or television or radio, you want to be able to give the members of Congress as press person a heads up and say, hey, we're hosting this. It'd be awesome to be able to count with have your support for this campaign. And it can be either, they'll follow you, or they'll put out tweets or retweet your stuff if you gave them a heads up. It worked especially well during National GEAR-Up Week, just reaching out to the press people and saying, hey, this is what's happening, and we got some pretty good traction there. And then fourth and very important is just the district offices. Who is a person? Sometimes, district offices range a lot in terms of size. Sometimes it's just a couple of people. Sometimes it's a full-fledged office that has an education person, a scheduler person, a press person for that district, and a chief of staff, and all kinds of people. But most of the times what you want to know is just, who's my contact that handles education at the district level. Some of this information you will find on contactingthecongress.org. It's a site that we use frequently, and I will share a quick screenshot of that. Just so you have, it's very simple. You take your zip code, you punch it in here, and you say submit, and it gives you, who your members of Congress are. Well, in the case of DC, we get text, but we have no representation. So we have a delegate who does not necessarily have a vote on some of the committees. But here you can see that you have, who's a scheduler and who's a press secretary. And what you do to find out the other contact information, you just, you call the DC office and you say, hey, I'm building my database of my member of Congress, and I want to, can you please share, your press email and who the education legislative aide is. And boom, and you have that in an Excel spreadsheet, you have it in a notepad on your desk, you have it on a Post-it on your desktop, wherever. Whatever works best for you, that's where you deposit this information. Now be mindful, the who, in terms of members of Congress, you have 2 senators and 1 representative. So that's 12 pieces of information at the very least that you need to work ahead of time to have. And that's just going to save you a ton of time. Moving on, the what, well, that's the easy part. We'll provide that to you. You just have to enrich it with the local information, and I recommend that GUALA alumni leaders touch base with their coaches and say, hey, let's have a couple of talking points ready on like local results that we have, or give me the can you share that script of that video that you guys just released on GearUp, and we'll pull some talking points from that video, or just go watch the video and pull some ideas from there. But it's fairly simple, and it doesn't need to be anything complicated. The local information is really the richest piece that you will, the most juicy part that you'll be adding to the communications. It's what personalizes it. It's what makes it authentic. So make sure to pick something meaningful that truly shows the impact of that GearUp is having in the community. And then you go to how do you build the list of the people that you will be reaching out to? And some low-hanging fruit is, okay, who are some of my former classmates? What are they up to? What are they doing? Let's make a list of 5 friends that I had from GearUp, and just put them on your list, regardless if they're around where you are now or somewhere across the country. Just make that list and start trying to build that list by talk to the coach and say, hey, can we add some students here that are always very active and care about GearUp and responsive when you put when you send out invitations to events. And you start. The list doesn't need to be like thousands strong. It's really you'll start with 5 people and a list of 20, 30 people that you can count on, but that that you can really count on is much more valuable than having a list that's like 1,600 records large, but you don't know how if they're really going to take action. So you have students, you have alumni like yourself. You have staff, GearUp staff that wants to participate, the parents, your parents, parents of your friends, parents of students that are currently in the program, school leadership, school staff. I mean, it's just like these are all people that are like already surrounding you. So this is easy peasy. Partners, GearUp contractors, and then there's regional and local companies that care, companies and associations that care about college access, that care about having qualified students that can come back and work for their businesses. So make sure that you reach out to them as well and engage them in your network. And then this is really important. Just as we are drilling you guys on, oh, I'm getting a time check from Judy. Okay, it's 5:30. I'm going to hurry up. But we've got good time. Just as you guys are working, as we are working with you on kind of helping you build this network, you need to work with your network and say, okay, guys, I'm going to be sending you calls to action via email, or I'm going to be texting you guys when I get a call from NCEP, or when I see an opportunity to advocate for Gear Up or for college access or for student, low-income students. So be ready, and this is what I need. When you get that call from me, this is what I need you to do. So host a lunch break thing. It's at your, if you're currently in college, round up your friends, do a Google Hangout. And say, hey guys, I'm going to be reaching out, and this is what I really need you to do. So you need, just as we're trying to drill you guys, you need to go back and drill your folks so that they're ready, that they're energized, that they're pumped up, and ready to take action when you ask them to. Here's some questions. I already kind of went over some of these, but think of who you've acted with before. On other calls to action, not necessarily NCEPs or Gear Ups. Think of the folks that you know are committed to similar causes. For staff on the webinar, there's definitely events that people. There's always that group of overachievers that are always looking to go the extra step. That you just gave them an assignment, they did the assignment, they come back and they're like, okay, what else? I want to do more. So that's how you start building that list. It's great if you have people that are influential. If you're able to involve businesses and associations that carry weight in the district. That when they call their member, the member will pick up the call. They will actually pick up the call. It's great if you have those, but if you don't, you start building them, and then you are the leader of this network of these. Of all these people, and then you start becoming that influential person. That person that when you call your district office, they identify you. They know who you are, and they will also start reaching out back to you because they know that you are the specialist on college access, or you are the student that's the low-income student that is now successful because of Gear Up and and you're pursuing graduate studies, and you're committed and engaged with your community and all that kind of stuff. So who's influential? Who are your partners? I know Walfrey, for example. He's president of an association at his university. Which other organizations do you partner with that you can pull into your network of supporters to advocate for Gear Up? And then, well, you guys, Gear Up alumni and other Gear Up alumni leaders. Okay. And this is really important. This is how you, as well as NCEP, measure how successful we're being at what we're trying to achieve. This is where you say, okay, so my goals, my broad goals for whenever I receive a call to action is to get 5 people to call in. And then when you send the call back out to your folks, and you get 7 calls, you're already up by 2. So you're being successful. Measuring and capturing help you kind of gauge yourself to know if what you're doing is being effective. So if you decided that the list of supporters that you've enlisted, you will reach out to them via Twitter whenever you get a call to action, and you see that nobody responded to your call to action, well, it's time to reassess how you're communicating with them. You need to make sure that that's working. So next time when a call to action comes, you'll try maybe phoning them, and if phoning didn't yield any results, well then let's try texting, and then boom, and it's a learning process. You need to get to know how your folks like to hear about what you want them to do, and what are the mediums that they best react to. So make sure that you set up measuring, measuring goals, so to speak. And this will allow you always to kind of come back and adapt accordingly as you move forward. Another part of measuring is also the capturing, and it's okay. Did you go visit with your member of Congress? Well, do you have a smartphone? Yes, I do. Okay, well, take a picture while you're there. If the congressman took your picture and you get that in an email, well, make sure to send it out and tweet it out and say, thank you, member of Congress. It was a great meeting. It was a pleasure, talk to you about Gear Up and the impact that it's having in your community. Did you set up a call bank? Well, take a picture of the call bank and say, and add a legend to it and say, here are 30 parents making calls to their members of Congress or to local businesses enlisting their support for Gear Up. Did you send greeting cards? Well, take a picture of the greeting card and tweet about that. Post it on your Facebook. Send it to us in an email and say, hey, we just sent out 30 postcards. So, the capturing piece, it's just really about, coming back and saying, hey, this is what happened. And it doesn't need to be like a full-fledged 12-page, double-spaced, 1.5 spacing margins document. It can be something informal. Just answer the 5 questions: who, what, when, where, and why, and that's all we need, so that we can keep the momentum going. So that's important. We talked about measuring, and then we talked about reporting. So reporting is critical for us as it is critical for you. Like I said, you want to know that what you're doing is really having an impact. That when you're asking people to do things, that they're actually doing them. So there's a couple of easy ways that we like to hear back from you, and then you'll have to decide what works best for you to hear back from your network. But a really simple one is just when you get the email, there's always like 7 links that say please report back. And it's really, when you click that, it's you open up a message, an email saying like, hey, I took action. I actually populate the text for you, so it's very simple. I mean, really. When you report back, sometimes when you send an email to your member of Congress or a letter, you'll get a letter back. Well, make sure that you forward that response to us via fax, via email, or just a picture, whatever works best for you. But it helps us kind of keep track. And what we do is we most of the times then go back and reach out to that member and say, hey, I know you recently heard about from Mickey Vasquez in Gear Up for LA, and we really appreciate the support that you've been giving her, Representative Becerra, and we look forward to keep working with you and your staff on making sure that Gear Up remains a top priority, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that helps, that helps coordination between the local efforts that you're doing and what we're doing at the national level. So it's like a 1-2 punch, and that's really successful. Like I said, just a quick write-up. It doesn't need to be a full-fledged novel. You can also, we have the upload. We have the success stories on the Ed Partnerships website, so you can upload your stuff there as well. And I'm going to see if I can show you that real quick. So here we have a bunch of success stories. These are mainly videos, of things that have happened in the past. Here we go for the Virginia folks online. This is a very cool video about a program that they have over the summer for students. So you can share your story by just submitting it here. So did you just take action? Yes. Well then come over here, click submit, and this is it. Add a video. If you have a video, add a photo of whatever you guys did, and then we'll make sure to post it on the NCEP website. Okay. So and if you've developed a call to action response kit, where you have like you're super organized, you created an Excel spreadsheet with the contact information of your members and all that kind of stuff, and then and who's on your call tree and all that. If you created one of those, upload it to the resources section of the NCEP website, and we'll be very happy to share that as well with the rest of the community right here under resources. All you need to do is just, do you have a resource to add? Just email Diane, and we'll make sure to add it to our resources. Sorry. So, the next steps, you ask. You need to create your directory of the folks that you need to reach out to. We've already talked about the fact that we will be sharing the what of the ask. You need to think about how you want your folks to be hearing from you, your network. What is the medium that you're going to communicate the call to action to? Who will you call on? So who's that network that you're starting to build? And how will you call them? Okay, and just make sure that you set some goals, some simple goals. Like I said, if I write 30 people, I want 5 responses, and then try to hold yourself accountable to those standards, just so you're measuring the progress that you're making. Okay. So in the next slide, I'll share some quick opportunities that we see that are upcoming for the rest of the calendar year, 2013. As you know, the government shutdown was resolved last Tuesday, and defaulting on our debt was also avoided. Now that's, unfortunately, it's only been postponed. We've got funding for the government through January the 15th, and the debt ceiling was suspended through February the 15th. So that happened. All of this was resolved last Wednesday, and in those negotiations, they created a budget conference committee that brings together House and Senate members. And the idea is for them to hash out a plan to fund the government for the rest of the fiscal year 14, which already started. The fiscal year 14 for the government started on October the 1st. So their goal is to hash out what's going to happen from January 15th through September the 30th. And hopefully, if they're being a little bit overly ambitious, I think, and hopefully beyond that date, and trying to address some of the larger issues that have been creating some of that enormous debt that we've been accumulating over a couple of years. So this is one opportunity where I am absolutely certain we'll be putting out multiple calls to action, quite intensive and immediate and kind of very time sensitive, because as conversations and negotiations start evolving, we're going to have to be updating our ask, and the goal here is going to be to ask to protect funding for college access and programs like Gear Up, and to undo the effects of sequestration. As you might remember from our meeting back in June here in DC, Gear Up was cut by about 15 million. Fortunately, and I say that with a very large grain of salt, those current Gear Up grantees did not feel the impact of those cuts, because it was absorbed by potential new grants that the Department of Ed could have made to grow the Gear Up program. So we lost $15 million, and not only that, we lost the opportunity to grow and serve more students across the country. So as the Budget Conference Committee negotiations move forward, we need to make sure that we stand the line, and that the effects of the Budget Control Act that was signed in 2011 and the effects of sequestration are reversed, and that Gear Up gets funded again at the original levels that were being funded before this whole crisis started. So that's going to be a huge item now through January 15th. Like I said, it's most likely always going to be highly critical and highly time sensitive. So it's important that you're on the lookout for that. It's important that you have all these pieces that we talked about today ready to go for when the call to action comes. And then a potential topic that we might be touching on, this is wishful thinking, but some people say it might happen. The Higher Education Act expired this summer. The Higher Education Act is where Gear Up is authorized as a program. It's the law that creates the Gear Up program, and if the law expired, it really doesn't have an impact on if Gear Up can continue to operate or not. As long as the law, as we're not written out of the law, the program can continue to operate regardless if the law is, current or expired. But the fact is that it's up for reauthorization, and when laws are up for reauthorization, that's when changes happen. And so we want to make sure that any changes that are being discussed for to be made to the Gear Up program, we need to make sure that those are favorable to the student, for the students that we're serving, and making sure that that we're improving the law and not reducing its power and its impact. So that's, like I said, another potential topic that we might be putting out calls to action during the rest of the calendar year 13. Now, for 14, in a normal year, now we haven't had a normal year for like 4 or 5 years, and when I say normal, I mean in terms of appropriations. So I've adapted this calendar to reflect a little bit of what's been happening over the last couple of years in terms of appropriations. In theory, Congress should pass all appropriations bills before they leave in August for the following fiscal year. So this August 2013, they should have been done with all the bills that fund the government starting October the 1st, which is the fiscal year 14 funding. So bringing it back to the calendar, in January, like I said, we'll be working with the Budget Conference Committee, making sure that they are passing, that they're, if they're discussing cuts, that it doesn't include Gear Up, it doesn't include college access and education in general. In Gear Up, it's a great time to loop back to your members of Congress and say, hey, we just send a huge contingent of professionals and school leadership to the capacity building workshop where they learn about X, Y, Z, and here's some of the things that we've learned, and this is how we're going to apply it in the district, and this is the impact it's going to have. So these, this is a way to kind of keep blipping on the radar of your members of Congress without always going back and rehashing the same talking points, but you're bringing updates. You're saying, hey, Gear Up is starting to integrate these new strategies that we've heard are really successful, like making sure that low-income students are applying to more difficult, more selective schools. So that it's a way. Here's all these are like milestones that you can then kind of look back and say, hey, this is what's new in the Gear Up movement. And so you don't feel that you're being repetitive. So February through May traditionally has been when Congress, like I said, starts debating and preparing budgets and appropriations bills for the next fiscal year. So that's I can tell you with absolute certainty that's a time when we will be definitely putting out calls to action. We usually circulate, well, Congressman Fatah usually circulates a letter on Capitol Hill asking his peers to sign on to support more funding for Gear Up. So that, like I said, that happens usually February, March. And then, June. It's a perfect time to loop back and say, look, this is a class of, 2014 Gear Up, and it's awesome. If we compare it to last year's class where we didn't have Gear Up in our community, this is, this is the difference that Europe is making. We've increased our high school graduation rates by 85%, and out of those, and out of all those that graduated, like 70% of them are applying for college, and out of those 70% that are applying for college, and sorry that I'm lowballing the numbers, they're much, much higher. 30 of the 50 students are applying to selective schools. So Europe rocks. It's awesome. So these are like I said, just excuses that you can find to loop back and update your district folks, your members of Congress here in DC on what's going on with Europe. The conference, the annual conference in 2014 is here in DC. Well, we have a whole day dedicated to going up to Capitol Hill and making sure that your members of Congress are listening and hearing on the most recent developments on Europe in their districts and their communities. So, that's an easy one. August, well, some of you had the opportunity to start participating this August on some of the action that we take around August. While Congress is on recess and your members are in their districts. And then, well, September, National Gear Up Week, and then October, we're kind of where we are right now. And I know this goes beyond your commitment to, the Gear Up Alumni Leadership Academy, but we really do look forward to keeping you guys engaged and active, actively participating in what's going on with Gear Up. So, like I said, these are just some opportunities and important milestones that I know are coming down the pike. So it's time to build your kit and start taking action now. And since we are in this baby-themed mood, here's baby Sebastian, and even he knows that Gear Up works. So let's go get him, guys. And thank you so much for participating today. Have a great one, and I'll stick around. We have about 8 minutes to be respectful of your time for questions and answers. And Judy, why don't you take it from here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or comments that folks might have.
Sure. Thank you so much, Daniel. As far as questions, feel free to submit them now. We can wait a couple minutes. We do have one from Lilia. It says, did GUALA leaders receive Congress at your fingertips directory?
Hey, Lilia, thanks for your question. They did not, and that's actually something that we should write into the budget for next year's alumni leadership. I think that's an awesome idea. Just so for the folks that have don't know what we're talking about, previous years we would give all alumni annual conference attendees a directory, printed directory that we would buy with their members, with information, basic information, contact information on their members of Congress, and it had some quick reference points. I should say, now that you've got me thinking, Lilia, there's a really cool app that I just recently downloaded, and I can't find it now. I'm going to have to get back to you guys on that one, but it's from the Sunlight Foundation, and oh yes, here it is. Okay, it's called Congress. Boom, that was hard. The app's name is Congress. You can find it on the App Store. I'm not sure they have one for Android. So if you have a smartphone, specifically an iPhone, you want to make sure to download that app, and you can find, you can follow specific members of Congress, which is pretty cool. You can follow bills, specific bills, or specific committees. So yeah, so I would definitely encourage you to download that application and follow your members. Follow the members of your home state, and if you're not going to school in your home state, follow the members from your current home state or host state or whatever you want to call the state you're in now, and make sure you reach out to them too, and it never hurts.
Alrighty.
Hey, Judy, how about sending me some of those planted questions from the fake participants that we have?
And where would I find those?
Okay, well, guys, unless there are any other questions, we are always, happy to take your calls, happy to hear from you through Twitter or Facebook or email. So make sure to reach out to us if you have any specific questions about what we shared with you today, and if you have any other ideas on how you can build your supporter network and ideas that we can integrate into this presentation, please do let me know. We always love getting feedback and ideas that work.
We do have another question. Will you send the PowerPoint? We will be, we can definitely do that. And we'll also have the YouTube video up sometime this week or early next week. One other question is, what goes into writing a press release?
Good question. So we actually have we already have a recording of a webinar on kind of media outreach, but it's more about the logistics of, a little bit like this, creating that directory and making sure who you need to reach out to. A press release is basically a document that answers who, what, when, where, and why, and you add a couple of quotes of the important people that participated in that. And if you're one of those important people, well, you're already, you already know that you're going to get that quote pretty quickly, and boom, that's it. We have press release templates for National Gear Up Week, which you can adapt for any other purpose. I mean, the only reason that why they're not for National Gear Up Week is because they have the National Gear Up Week logo, which you can remove and then use for any other purpose. But I think, Judy, if you feel that there's more interest from the Gear Up alumni network, we can talk about having, preparing a presentation or a webinar on kind of a little bit more hands-on on press and press releases and media advisories and reaching out to the media and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. And
but you know what? I don't know who asked the question. You don't need to reveal their identity if they don't want that. But I think, if you have something awesome to talk about, I would try to get the attention of, the press people on that issue. I would presume it's education, from your local or your regional, your state newspaper, and just say, hey, I have a great story that I like to pitch, and you just tweet that at them, and well, just one tweet won't do. You need to tweet at them a couple of times, and then make sure that you have a good story prepared for when they do respond, and you can pitch it to them. So that's something we could work on with the alumni leaders as well. So I hope I answered your question.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Daniel. I think we'll wrap it up. I haven't seen any other questions come in. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the attendees, and we will actually have a short survey for you once we check out of here. So if you could just take 2-3 minutes to fill that out, it will ask for suggestions for future webinars and trainings, and we'll use that feedback to make adjustments and create new things for you, new tools for your toolkit. Well, thanks again. Signing off from NCEP, and there's Sebastian's beautiful picture again.
Gear Up works, guys. Even baby Sebastian knows it.
Hashtag Gear Up Works. Thanks again. Reach out if you have any questions.